so the percent proportion, you remember what we learned the other day, you can always find a missing part of the percent proportion if you start with this. And remember, it's always percent over what? 100. And then the part over the whole, right? Because the percent is the part, and the whole is always 100. What are our key words that help us think about our part and our whole? What goes with part? We have an is and we have an of. What word goes with part? Is. And the whole is always the of, right? I can think about that if I have 3/4. This fraction is, the whole thing is how many parts? 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 is my whole. And if I have 3 parts shaded, that's part. The part shaded is 3 out of the whole, which is 4. So 3/4, 3 is part of the whole 4. Is and of. 3 is part of the whole, which is 4. That's why that is and of makes sense. Can you make the connection to this? What would be the percent for this? Anybody know? 75%, right? So 3/4 is 75% of 100 of the whole. So we can kind of make connections to this percent proportion. And this is really helpful because we've been able to find, if we know what 3/4 is, or if we know what the percent is, we've been able to find the part. But now sometimes we need to be able to find the percent, or we have the percent and the part and we need to figure out the whole. So this percent proportion works for any of these 3 missing items. Is this ever going to change? No, that's going to be there every single time. So let's try number 1. 50 is 20% of what number? Every single time you start with this. Every single time you start with that. So 50 is 20% of what number? What's missing in that one? The whole, the of, right? 50 is 20% of, what's the whole? Cross multiply, 100 times 50 is 5,000. 5,000 divided by 20. 250. So make sure that when you answer this, if it's a percent, you put the percent sign with it. But this is not the percent. The whole is. So 20% of 250 is 50, or 50 is 20% of what number? All right, let's try number 2. What percent of 20 is 4? Start with this every single time. I can't stress that enough. Every single time. So, what percent? What's missing in this one? The percent of 20 is 4. So now I can see where things go. 4, 20, and I'm missing the percent. So 100 times 4 is 400. 400 divided by 20 is 20. So your answer is 20%. Because remember, we were just finding the percent. All right, let's try number 18. 5.25% of 170 is what number? We're on 18. .25% of 170 is what number? What's missing? The is or the part, right? So 5.25%. Do I have to write the percent sign? Don't. Don't write the percent sign, because if you used the percent sign and then divided it by 100, which is what this problem is doing, it's not going to give you the right number. So 5.25 over 100. Where does the 170 go? The numerator or denominator? The denominator. The of 170. Cross multiply. 170 times 5.25. Finish that problem. I should see you working on your calculator. Finish that problem. Anybody have an answer for me? Summer? Do we agree with that? Anybody else get that? Okay, let's work it out. So what'd you do first, Summer? Okay, 5.25 times 170. Okay, so cross multiply this way. This times this would give us 892.5. So since we don't know what that number is, we're going to do the opposite. So we're going to divide. And we got the answer of 8.925. Now, what do our directions say? Round to the nearest tenth if necessary, right? Round to the nearest tenth if necessary. So what would that be? Is that already rounded to the nearest tenth? No. So if I have 8.925, which digit's in the tenths place? The 2 is in the tenths place? The 9 is in the tenths place. What digit tells that 9 what to do? The 2. What does it tell it to do? Stay the same. So what is our answer? 8.9. Make sure that when you get a decimal that's that large, you go back and you check the directions. Questions on this side. So does this side need any words? No, they're not word problems. They don't need words. Let's look at the back. Problem solving the percent proportion. Now these can be a little bit more difficult because sometimes they're hard to find the is and the of. So sometimes you have to make sense of it as the part and the whole, right? So you're still going to start these with that same percent proportion, with the percent over 100 and the part over the whole. So you're going to have to use some reasoning sometimes with these and figure out what the part and the whole is. Sometimes it has the is and the of keywords. Sometimes it does not. So sometimes you have to make sense of it. When you're working through these, if you're having trouble, come see a teacher and we will help you. But what we're going to be looking for is that you have gone through this and you have tried to find a part and a whole. Does that make sense? Let's look at the first one. Mudrick installed a device on his car that guaranteed to increase his gas mileage by 15%. He currently gets 22 miles per gallon. How much will the gas mileage increase after installing the device? So we're looking for, that's a hard one, right? So let's start with our percent proportion. There's one thing that's easy to find. What's easy to find in that word problem? The percent, and what is that? And where are we going to put it? Right here over the 100, the numerator over the 100, because a percent is always out of 100. He currently gets 22 miles per gallon. How much will it increase? So we have a part and a whole. Can anybody explain what you think 22 miles per gallon is? Or what you think the increase would be? One of those is going to be a part and one of those is going to be a whole. Give it a try. The whole is the 22. The whole is the 22, and we're going to increase. Part of that 22 is going to be an increase, right? The increase can't be the whole amount of gas mileage he gets. So do you see how sometimes you're going to have to use some reasoning through this? So, and a lot of times, if you solve the problem and you get an answer that doesn't make sense, this is where that making sense of your answer comes into place. Because would you think your part is going to be bigger than 22? Or do you think your answer would be bigger than 22? How much will the gas mileage increase after installing the device? Would you think your answer is going to be more than 22 miles per gallon if it's an increase? No, it should not be. So you can make sense of it. So we're going to put our 22 here, and then we're going to solve it. 22 times 15. We get 330. This way we would get 330. And what do we do now? Thank you. 3.3. And so, am I done here on this problem? No, why? We need words. Word problems need words in the answer. So go back and read your last sentence. How much will the gas mileage increase after installing the device? And what would we say? Someone raise your hand and tell me how we would answer that. Dominic?
It would increase 3.3%.
So is it a percent? So this right here is miles per gallon. So this also has to be miles per gallon, right? So the mileage will increase 3.3 miles per gallon. And that makes sense, right? 15% is not a lot out of the whole. And so 3.3 is not a lot out of 22, right? It's less than half. This is a lot less than half. So that makes sense. So a lot of working with this percent proportion is making sure that your answer makes sense after you put it into a sentence form. Questions? Okay, we're going to let you work on these. If you're having trouble, check in with a teacher. I want on the front to check in with a teacher after number 8. So when you get to here, so work on 3 through 8. Make sure you're showing your work, and then come check in and have your work checked before you get too far. If you're having trouble, come sit with me or Mrs. Bent.